You know what I really wanted to do as well as part of the show is this because we're always looking things through the three Abrahamic faiths lenses. Okay, that's what we're normally doing. So what I want to do today is let us look, and I was trying to push it all throughout the show. Let us look at things through the African lens. Okay, let's have a look through the lens of the Africans themselves and how they perceive things. How they perceive their own religion, how they perceive their own structures, their own prophets, etc., etc. Do we even have the concepts of prophets and so forth? So that is something that I wanted to go through today. I don't know if we have enough time, and if you want us to do something like that, let's get into this, because it's too long now where people are actually speaking about things from their own particular way, and we now have to try to conform to their particular way and try to explain ourselves and explain what we understand and what we believe, basically. So what I would love to do is let us take it from the African perspective, and I'm going to ask the panel who are from the African traditions, do we have a concept of a prophet? And if not, or if so, is it same or similar to that of the Abrahamic faiths?
Right. From my perspective, my little bit, I can't speak for all of Africa. I can only speak for the bits that I know. We do not believe in, traditionally speaking, we do not have prophets. What we have are heroes. So we have individuals who, during their lifetime, have done something that's recognized as being great, and that's been marked. And they go on to join the rest of the ancestors and so on and so forth. So for my little corner, we don't believe in prophets.
Can I jump in?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, yeah, I'm with, again, I don't speak for all Africans, but I've never heard of any sort of prophets in any kind of African stories or any kind of African traditions. What happens in African tradition is that I guess the traditions and the stories get passed on from generation to generation through your parents' parents, and you do pick up these cultures and then you pass them on to your children. So in terms of when you're looking at like Western religions, that's when you start getting these prophets or these saviors being sent to people. But in terms from an African perspective, or from my own personal experience of African tradition, there is no such thing as a prophet.
Can I say something?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's very important that we get a kind of diverse and kind of well-rounded understanding of what our cultures and our brothers do believe. So I welcome the kind of information that they're putting in there. But the brother said something earlier about about Buddhism or Buddha not teaching about rebirths, and I thought it was ridiculous, because literally you can just go to something called the Bhagavad text, and it literally talks about the transition of samsara, and this is 6 realms of existence, namely 3 good realms: heavenly, demigod, and human, and 3 evil realms: animal, hungry, ghosts, and hellish. So when you're talking about rebirth and when you're talking about Buddha and what these other kind of people taught and believe, I think it's very important that you actually study the text.
When was it written? When was it written, brother?
This is the Bhagavad text.
Yeah, fine. When was it written? Hundreds of years
text.
after. Hundreds of years after him.
I'm telling you, I'm just telling you what they teach, my brother. This is what they teach. This is not what I'm saying. Okay. This is not what you're saying. These are just facts, what they teach.
All right,
so
my brother, real quickly, let me just reiterate the rules of the show, everybody. I know we're getting passionate, it's getting heated. We've got new people joining us. Peace to my brother Elna from Kazakhstan. You just joined us now as well. Peace. If you're enjoying the show as well, please give us a big thumbs up. But here at Talk with the Titans, I'm about to say Speakers Corner, But here at Talk with the Titans, we literally have 3 rules, okay? Rule number 1 is to please keep your mics muted at all times. Rule number 2, okay, is to respect another person's cipher. When they're speaking, please do not talk over them. Rule number 3 is please no profanity and keep the ad hominems to the very bare minimum. Of course, if you want to drop in some little wit there, we like it, but let's just keep it real, lovely and friendly as well. So this is the second part of the show where we're actually talking about prophets within inside of the African context itself. Like, do we have something as prophets? So, where most religions such as Judaism, Christianity, and Islam are claiming prophets, and then we want to, fall in line with that. Do we even have that within inside of our own traditions itself? So now I'm actually going to be reading from one of my favorite books, which is African Religion and Philosophy by John Mbiti. And on page 185, okay, it talks about prophets here, okay? It talks about prophets. And it says, in the strict biblical sense of prophets and the prophetic movement, there are no, sorry, let me do that again, okay? There are no prophets in African traditional societies, okay? So that's from Professor John Mbiti. He says that there is literally no African prophets is in the sense of the biblical sense, okay? He does make mention of prophets outside of that, okay? And that's what I want to go into right now. What do we consider to be prophets from an African tradition, independent of the Bible itself, okay? Because we've already established we don't have prophets like that according to the Bible and even the Quranic sense. We have prophets or priests of a different disposition in totality. So I want to go into that realm now, right now. If you're with me and you want to go into that, let me know, okay? Are you guys up for this?
Let's go.
All right, let's go into that. So what I wanted to do, actually, wow, this is just dropping. I'm going to go and look up the word prophet real quickly, and let's look at how we, accepted the term prophet and how we defined it itself. Okay. So what I'm going to do real quickly, I've to be honest with you, I've done this already, but I'm going to do this where everybody can kind of just see a methodology where you can do yourself real quickly. Okay, so what I've quickly just done is, typed in the word prophet. Let's just go through an encyclopedia. Encyclopedias aren't too bad. And we got the word prophet. Okay, but let's go into, obviously, we know that the word prophet is actually an English terminology. So let's go back into the Greek terminology of prophetes. Okay, and let's see what it actually meant, and before the Bible got into play, or these religions got into play. So the word prophetes literally means one who speaks for and interprets the will of a god, a prophet, a seer. Okay, so I want to know, or a spokesperson of a particular deity. So number one, do we have that in ancient African culture? One who speaks for and interprets the will of a god, a seer, basically.
Can I jump in?
Yeah.
All right. So I think the closest. I'll keep you on the feedback. The closest thing for me that I think, well, from the description, or from the description that you've given there, is probably the medicine man in like in the local tribes or in the villages and stuff, and that would be the closest thing to someone who's able to speak to the gods, and not necessarily like one god, but to multiple gods, to different ancestors and stuff. That would be the closest thing to a prophet. But then I don't think that even though we would venerate those elders or whoever that person is, I don't think that we're kind of literally looking at that person as a savior, as perhaps the
from a biblical sense. So let's keep it from the African sense. So we're going through the Greeks and what their definition was and so forth. So it has there one who speaks for and interprets the will of a god, so basically a spokesperson. Another one here is one of the keepers of the oracles. Another one here is actually a priest at an Egyptian temple. Okay, a priest at an Egyptian temple was considered to be a prophetess. Okay, that's really interesting. One who interprets the ravings of an oracle. So we got it here, where also it is customary to set the tribes of prophets to pass judgment upon these inspired divinations. And another one is an interpreter or proclaimer. And another one here is in Christianity is called a prophet. But let's skip that because we don't really interested in that. Another thing here is an herbalist. Okay, so these are the different definitions of a prophetess or prophet within inside of the Greek definition of the term prophet. So we're going to strip aside, the biblical terminology, the Quranic terminology, and we're going to just simply go with what the Greek said. And also we're going to jump into exactly what the Egyptians themselves said, because over here we got the third definition, which is a priest at an Egyptian temple. So technically speaking, our priests were considered to be prophets, but not in the sense of the biblical sense. All right. Is everybody clear with me with that one?
Yeah, I mean, I get you. I think it's one of those things that it's compound, and the problem with these compound things is that it gets a little bit woolly around the edges.
Okay, so I want to know, like, for example, do we have oracles within inside of our African cultures? Do we have herbalists within inside of our African cultures? And do we have priests within inside of our African cultures as well? So those are the three things. Do we have those things?
I mean, we have them. We have them. But the point I was trying to make is when using somebody else's language to describe what you have, that's what I mean by it's a very the term, the way the Greeks were using it was very compound. I mean, reading between the lines, it's basically saying anyone who's learned to be classed as a prophet.
That's right.
I do think as well that when we're talking about especially Egyptians and how they kind of transmitted their kind of information, when we're talking about dealing with celestial beings, they had oracles and they had people that it wasn't necessarily just men that were prophets that had the will of God that spoke exactly the word he said. It was more a kind of a spiritual kind of awakening, so to speak, and it was kind of transmitted in that way. So yeah.
Kalam, you've muted yourself. Kalam, you've muted yourself.
You're on mute, fam.
I've seen it. Damn, I was there going in as well, Jeez.
Stop it.
So yeah, definitely wanted to make sure we can actually see it from our own perspective, okay? How we view things itself. We did have prophets and so forth, but let us get it from our own perspectives, what we viewed as prophets, because we had a whole list and a criteria of what it took for somebody to be classified as a priest/prophet within inside of the African context and the Egyptian context, not exactly as how we know it through the biblical and Quranic context itself. So if somebody even wants to try to claim that there was a prophet from an African context, okay, do they fit those criteria? If they don't, clearly we need to dismiss them, because obviously Jews, Christians, and Muslims, they all have their criterias of what a prophet is. But unfortunately, we as Africans, we tend not to have that type of criteria because we don't perceive the same things that they perceive. So let's just give our own criteria so they can see and the whole world can see what we perceived as somebody who is a priest or a prophet within our traditions, if that makes sense. Is that good with you? Is that good with you? I'm asking. That's a question. All right, I'll take it. I'll take it as good with you. So, this is a very nice, article here, which is called Prophet Initiations and the Egyptian Temples. Okay. So over here, it talks about, certain things that we viewed and we considered. It says here, both the priests and the prophet. Okay. So that's the Wa'ab and the Hemnecher or the Hamnecher are grades of priests. Okay. But the distinction between their various rights and duties has been inadequately explored. The translation of both terms comes from the Rosetta Stone, where Egyptian title Hemnecher is translated into the Greek as prophetess, and thus is conveniently translated into English as prophet, while the Egyptian title Wa'ab is rendered Herios, and thus Let me just make sure my 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 Greek is correct here. Yes, and thus conventionally translated as priest. Kisa says that the priest served on the file rotation and so forth. So yeah, so we have a definition of what a prophet is in terms of an Egyptian context. Okay, so obviously on the Rosetta Stone, I don't know. Let me just see. So we got here the Rosetta Stone. For those people who've never seen it before, this is the Rosetta Stone at the British Museum. Okay, the British Museum, and in there it has a tri-scriptural inscriptions. Okay, so it uses 3 different scripts. It uses the hieroglyphs, the demotics, and the Greek, Koine Greek. It uses. Okay, so it uses the 3 different scripts, and within the 3 different scripts there is a bilingual inscription. So basically, there's 2 different languages being spoken on this one particular stone. Okay, and this one particular stone, it has the Greek and it has the ancient Egyptian tongue itself. And in those 2 tongues, what the ancient Egyptians translated to mean they use the word Hamnecha. Okay, this is within their own language as well. The Hamnecha, which literally means a servant or an incarnation of the deity or of nature. Okay, so they use that terminology to describe what a prophet is in terms of their translation. So if anybody would like to claim prophecy, okay, or being a prophet, they need to be part of the Wa'ab, and they must have reached the stage of being a Ham Netcher. Okay, that's one thing I just wanted to put out there real quickly. Did anybody want to say something on that? Because I want to continue building. No, you lot are silent, yeah? You lot are mad silent. I love that. All right, cool. So we know from the ancient Egyptian, the ancient Egyptians had the term prophetess or to mean somebody who was an oracle, somebody who was a herbalist, skilled in medicine, and also somebody who was very learned to become a priest. Okay, so when anybody wants to claim to you that there is a prophet, we now need to have our own criteria to see if they match up to our criteria. We shouldn't be judging from their criteria. We should be judging from our own criteria. If you belong to the Igbo tribes, if you belong to the to Yoruba, Orobo, Hausa, if you belong to Afanti, Ashanti, Asante, if you belong to the Fula, if you belong to the Jollof tribe, the Wolof tribe, and all these different types of tribes, you need to have your own criteria, okay, before you simply accept that Bible, before you simply accept the Quran. If they want to say that they've got prophets, you need to say, okay, this is what our prophets are. Does yours fit that criteria? And if it doesn't, we have to say, sorry, we're okay. We like what you're doing. We congratulate what you're doing, but we simply can't accept them because it's not part of our particular tradition. Are you with me?
Oh, yeah.
Good. So I'm going to ask my African brothers out there, in terms of a priest or an oracle or a prophet, in terms of the African terminology, what was those particular criteria? What do these traditionalists do? Who are they? What are they about? Edo man, I'm going to pass that one over to you. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead, King. Yo, go ahead, King. You got mute your mic. Can you talk?
Should I go in?
Yeah, go in, man.
All right. So, like I said earlier on, I think my understanding of these people are that one of the roles would be healing. So they'd be people would be healing, or they serve as healers for the community. I think another role would be, obviously, like I said, to get in touch with the ancestors or to communicate with the ancestors, because maybe not everyone is in touch or not everyone is that spiritually inclined. So this person would have be able to communicate with the ancestors, be able to bring messages back from the ancestors to the people of maybe certain oncoming dangers and stuff. Perhaps also teach the people as well. So this is probably what I know to my knowledge of what our prophets would or priests would do. But anything outside of or comparing it to Western religions, I'm not too sure if there's any real comparison, to be honest. Go mute yourself.
That's right. Let's stay far away from comparing it with Western religions. We're simply going to tell them what our particular understanding of priest or prophet is from our understanding and our tradition yet again. Okay, so if you want to claim prophecy or prophethood, you know, this is how we recognize our own prophets, or, you know, not even the biblical sense of prophet, but in the sense of a priest within inside of our particular cultures. So again, I'm going to be reading from John Beatty's African Philosophy. And he states here that you know what, from the African societies, okay, prophets belong to the category of diviners, seers, and mediums, and may have other religious or political functions in their societies. Okay, a prophet is a person who is possessed by a spirit of the air. When they speak as prophets, it is spirits which speaks by their lips. Theopneustic speech. The prophets, in making his declaration, says, I am such and such, naming the spirit. What the prophets say and what spirits say are all mixed up together, the two being interspersed in such a manner that they cannot be separated. Continues to say that whereas priests deal only with God, the prophets deal with particular spirits, spirits of the air, or children of God. God does not enter into men and inspire them. Okay, so, you know, particular traditions say that, you know, God itself, that most supreme being, the one that's supposedly outside and inside creation, doesn't actually speak to them. It's a particular spirit that speaks to them. That it also names the categories or the criterias to actually judge whether a person is a prophet or not. It says here, he must be sober, kind to all people, and have a happy married life. So he needs to be married, not even just married. He actually needs to be happy. He acts as judge, prays for the people, blesses them, and curses those who deserve it. It is believed that they're in direct connection. They're the keeper of tribal medicines, perform as a diviner, and he is a parental authority supported by sanctions and curses. So just to give you an overview of what a African you know what, conceptualization and criteria are. They first must be blameless, they must be virtuous, they must be physically whole, they must be educated, they must be happily married, they must know medicine, they must be diviners, they must be blessers and be able to curse individuals, they must be able to possess the spirit, and they can also function as political leaders. Is that a fair summary from an African conceptualization of what a prophet or a priest is? I'm going to open that up.
Yeah, I think that is fair. You know, yeah, that's all I can say really. I'm not sure what else I can add to it. Let other brothers speak. You know.
Cool. Also, I wanted to actually read as well. So, you know what? So this is from our own traditional aspects of what a prophet priest is. And then we also have it as well from the, you know, for those people, the Islamic perspective. Let's do it from this. So this is the Arabic Hermes. Okay, this is another great book to get. And I'm actually reading from this particular quote is coming from Al-Mubassir. Okay, Al-Mubassir is the book of the thousands, and it gives us a nice rundown of you know what Hermes or Jehuti's you know what prophecy or prophethood school actually taught, and so forth. So this is coming from the Arab perspective of our own traditions itself. Okay, so if you want to learn from our own traditions, from your own sources, this is it right here. So it says here, he promised them. This is Idris or Hermes. It says, he promised them that a number of prophets would come after him, And he informed them that some of the characteristics of the prophet to be sent are they will be free of all causes of blame and ailments, perfect in all praiseworthy virtues, will not fail to answer correctly questions asked about anything in the heavens and the earth, and that he will indicate cures for every pain, and that his prayers will be answered in everything he asks for, including the sending down of rain, the lifting of ailments, and other sorts of requests. His madhabu, or his doctrine, and his preaching, which is dawatuhu, would be the doctrine by which the whole world became well, which is uja, and by which its prosperity increases. Okay, Seneb and uja, two Egyptian principles. So this is, this is the Hermes conceptualization of prophet. So again, just to run it down, they'll be blameless, virtuous, would know astronomy, geography, medicine, be a rainmaker, be able to bless and curse, and give people health and wealth. So from both perspectives, this is both coming from describing the African contextualization of what prophets are in terms of us. We could even do a comparison to say, were your individuals schooled? Were your individuals blameless? Were your individuals virtuous? Did they know astronomy? Did they know geography? Did they know medicine? Were they able to heal people? Were they able to call the rain down from the skies, etc., etc., etc.? Like, were they able to curse people, and the curse came to fruitions, etc., etc.? If not, we have no business in accepting your particular prophets. We have our own prophets themselves. Okay. Are you there, brothers? Is there anything that you wanted to add? Everybody's quiet as hell. All right, I'm going to continue. Since you're not being so quiet. So now, from the African conceptualization, again, that these individuals had to be educated. Okay, they had to be educated, they had to have knowledge, they had to be virtuous individuals that went through moral practices and proved themselves to be morally fit, as well as being intellectually astute as well. So if you're coming to us and you want to tell me that your prophets represents our particular way of life, we first need to actually have a good look at your prophet to be like, were you a blameless individual? Were you morally upright according to our standards? Yes or no? If it fails miserably, we have no business in looking at your prophets. Let's see, your prophets. Okay, were they educated? If they weren't literate and they weren't learned, sorry, we can't accept you as a prophet. Does that make sense? Because our tradition says that you need to be these things. Our tradition says you need to be well cultivated. If you aren't well cultivated, whether it is via the our own particular spiritual systems, then we can't possibly accept you as our prophets. Again, and our prophets had to go through a very stringent studies. Obviously, those of you lot who know about ancient Egypt, it is claimed that they spiritually, I'm going to do it like this, spiritually had to go through a training of 40 years before they can become a prophet or hemnetcher. Okay, it's a 40-year-old training. Now, I'm going to jump into some of our modern sages and wise individuals, such as George G.M. James in his Stolen Legacy. He's going to be quoting a lot from Diodorus Siculus and others as well. So I'm going to jump into that real quickly to let you lot know how we educated our particular priests and prophets, and only at that point were we able to say that these individuals could become a priest or a prophet. All right. Are you there? Everybody's there with me, right? Great.
Yeah, still here.
Great. So who's got Stolen Legacy here?
Yeah, I got it right here.
You got it? All right, yeah. Excellent. So chapter 7. Okay. So we have a chapter on the curriculum of the Egyptian mystery system. All right. So this is the Egyptian mystery system. If you wanted to be a priest, okay, or a prophet within inside of the Egyptian mystery system, you had to go through this training. And if your prophets claiming to be prophets didn't go through this training, we have no business in accepting them as prophets. Okay. We have no business accepting them, to be honest with you. All right. Okay, so from an ancient Egyptian perspective, of course, when we go into the African traditions themselves, in other locations, they went through their own particular training, that was according to their own systems. Some of them had to go through a 7-year period. I'm just reading again from page 183 of John and Beatty's African Philosophy. This says here they were where lengthy training is part of the preparation for priesthood. The priests are the despotories of national customs, etc. I'm just trying to find how long they actually studied for. But I'll find it for you later on to show you that they had to go through a long training, okay? A long training. They had to learn a lot of the laws, the customs, etc., etc., etc. And they had to be very much so educated. So they had to be educated in matters of their profession and religion as well. They had to be able to govern the moral and spiritual states, and etc., etc., etc. But I'm not going to go into that right now. Let me just read from what we have right here. So the curriculum of the Egyptian mystery system. It says here, the education of the Egyptian priests according to their orders, from Diodorus, Herodotus, and Clement of Alexandria. Okay, so we're going into the Roman, Greeks, and Egyptian church father, and an Egyptian church father telling us about the actual education and orders that they had to go through. So we learn that there were 6 orders of Egyptian priests, and that each order has to master a certain number of the books of Hermes. Clement has described a procession of the priests, calling them by their order and stating their qualifications as follows. First comes the singer Odos, bearing an instrument of music. He has to know by heart 2 of the books of Hermes, one containing the hymns of the gods and the other the allotment of the king's life. Next comes the horoscopist, carrying in his hand a horologium or sundial and a palm branch, the symbol of astronomy. He has to know 4 of the books of Hermes, which deals with astronomy. Next comes the hierogrammat, with feathers on his head and a book in his hand and a rectangular case with writing materials, the writing ink and reed. He has to know the hieroglyphics, cosmography, geography, astronomy, the topography of Egypt, the sacred utensils and measures, the temple furniture, and the lands. Can anybody else take over?
I have this book, but I think you got a different version.
Page 132. Page 132.
Oh, you want to? Okay. No, I think my page is slightly different, but I think where you're reading from what I've got here. So you're on to the I've got the stolists who must know the books of Hermes that deal with slaughter of animals and the process of embalming.
That's it. Continue from there. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So now we've got the prophets, who is the president of the temple, or the prophetess, who is the president of the temple, and must know 10 books of Hermes dealing with higher esoteric theology and the whole education of priests. And then we have the pastophori, or the pastophori, who must know 6 books of Hermes, which are medical books dealing with physiology, the diseases of male and female, anatomy, drugs, and instruments. And then we have the sciences of the monuments, which are the pyramids, the temples, the libraries, the obelisks, the sphinxes, or the sphinxes and the idols. Obviously, there's architecture, masonry, carpentry, engineering, sculpture, metallurgy, agriculture, mining, and forestry. There's art, which is drawing and painting. You have to know the secret sciences, which deals with numerical symbolism, geometrical symbolism, magic, the Book of the Dead, myths and parables. Because there's a social order and its protection. It also goes on to say that the priests of Egypt were also lawyers, judges, officials of government, businessmen, and sailors and captains. Hence, they must have been trained in economics, civics, law, government, statistics, census taking, navigation, shipbuilding, military science, the manufacture of chariots, and horse breeding. So, they go in. This is not just someone turning up in front of a pulpit and preaching. They're going in.
That's right. You have to be well educated before you could even try to claim prophecy. Of course, you even need to be part of the actual system itself. Whether you are part of, you have to be part of your own cultural system. You also need to be of the blood heritage. You need to be linked back via your father's genes, or whatever the case is. You need to be of a particular ethnicity to go back to becoming a priest, okay? Unless you are now married in, or unless you are now adopted as somebody, as to become part of the priesthood itself and become a prophet. It's not just somebody, a Johnny come lately out of nowhere, okay? For example, that's just far off, okay, from wherever you are, okay, in a cave, that now gets revelations and now says that he's a prophet. For example, I'm just giving that for example, okay? And he also claims that he's illiterate, he's unlearned, he doesn't know anything. We cannot particularly accept a prophet like that, okay? He needs to be ordained by somebody, number one. He needs to be part of a temple school. He needs to be educated in all of these things. He can't simply claim to be unlearned. He needs to be able to read and write. He needs to be literate from that perspective, to be able to be called a prophet from our perspective, okay? If you aren't, okay, sorry, but we cannot accept you, because imagine this now, okay? Imagine this. Me, I'm Kalam. I'm here. I now just come up, into your church or wherever you are, or into your mosque, and claim now, I had a vision from God and now I'm a prophet. Okay, I can't just do that. I'm pretty sure if I said that to you guys now, you look at me absurdly and think like I'm just taking the mick. Okay, but why do you think it's acceptable for other people from other cultures to come into our culture to say that they had this experience and they're a prophet and we should accept them? I don't think it should run like that. I'm not, I don't want to put it out there like to say like that. I personally believe that your particular prophets were highly educated, were highly literate, and all those types of things there. But I'm just simply saying the way you portray them, I can't accept them as my own prophet, because it just doesn't make sense. Okay, you have to be educated. You must know medicine. You must know about the stars. You must have an extensive education to even be classified and to be taken seriously. If you want to become a doctor, you have to go through a whole list of training, 7 years of training. If you want to be an architect, you have to go through 7 years of university training as well. If you want to be a lawyer, you have to go through 4 years, pass your bar, become a lawyer, etc., etc. Like, you have to go through these things. If you want to become a pastor, officially, you have to go through, your school of theology, etc., etc., etc. Pass that and be given your degree in that as well. So, but why do you now, your prophets, your messiahs, whatever the case is, they've just popped out of the blue and showing no qualifications. They're literally showing no qualifications to you, and something as very highly advanced as my own soul. Okay, if I want a doctor to practice on me, I need to see his credentials. Okay, I need to know that he's a certified doctor. But somebody who is now in charge of your soul, and you don't want to check their qualifications, and they have no qualifications, why should I take you seriously? Now, that's my question. I'm going to throw out there. Why should I even take you serious? Anyway, I'm going to open up. What are you saying, Kings?
Basically, I think that, yes, the modern day religion, or modern day, well, I don't even know what to, modern day religion, you kind of have to take it on faith and that's it. So, I say I'm a doctor or whatever, you have to believe me and that's it. So anyone comes in, they say I'm a prophet. Well, I guess he says he's a prophet. So bang, so you do what you need to do with me. And that's where Africans people are lacking that critical thinking or critical judgment, to assess these people who make these claims just out of nowhere and say, oh, well, you have to follow this or you have to do this. But we're showing you, if you do get this book, if you get a chance, get this book, Stolen Legacies, a small book by George M. James. It's a quick read. The standards that we had back in those days, just in the Nile Valley, but also Africa as a whole. So you're not just gonna accept any priest or any doctor or any lawyer just because they say I'm a lawyer. You want to see some credentials. You want to see some, certificates. You want to see some documentation. So this is what I have to add. But yeah, we need to get back to that sort of thinking, that level of critique, basically.
That's right, and that's going to quote again. Okay, so this is coming from E.G. Perinda, African Traditional Religion, London, 1954, and the other print is 1962, and he basically says that that priests and devotees, mediums devoted to the gods, are set apart for divine service. Okay, so they're set apart for divine service and receive some kind of initiation and training for it. Okay, there are different methods of training, from very simple to highly elaborate, but the priesthood as a class is distinct and developed. Their training may comprise seclusion from the world, instruction in the laws, and sometimes possessions by the divinities themselves. And it says that the vocation of priest and devotee is highly honored. It is generally open to both men and women. Concerning the priest among the Yoruba, Idowa writes, so the Idowa now writes that the priest has always been an important social figure. He's inevitable in the social pattern of the Yoruba, since the keynote of their national life is their religion. Virtually nothing is done without the administration of the priest, for apart from looking after the soul of the community, he features prominently in the installation of kings and the making of chiefs. Okay, so we know you have to go through. You first need to be called. Okay, you then need to be trained. Then you need to be initiated, and then finally you need to be cleansed and ordained. Okay, these are the few things, the 4 steps that you have to go through. So like, you have to go through a rigorous amount of training and initiations before you can be considered a prophet in our traditions. You with me? Go ahead, Brother Ido.
You got it all wrong. Got it all wrong. You just need to say you had a dream, yeah, and you felt good about the dream. That's all you need. Don't need anything else. Just have a nice dream, and God spoke to me and told me everything. Just trust me, and give me a $5 while you're at it.
My brother, funny. And again, so this is like that's what I'm saying. Like, we don't have that simplicity that you particularly have. And these, as again, I'm just showing you the reasons why we, as Black people, as African people, we have our own heritage. Please stop falling. If you're in a religion already and you belong there and so forth, that's cool. That's fine. I'm not even going to talk to you like that. I'm just simply saying, as African people, we need to have our own standards. Okay, the Jews themselves, they have their standards in their Deuteronomies and so forth, like to say, and in their Talmud and their Midrash and all of their scriptures to tell them what a prophet is. This is their prophets. Okay, the Christians, they have their own as well. They'll have test the spirit via this, all sorts, and they have their own. They have to be baptized. And then they also need to confess that the Lord Jesus Christ is their savior, etc., and then they can be a prophet and so forth. The Islam, they have their own version of a prophet and so forth. Like, everybody has their versions. Okay, we should now push forward our own version, okay, and not simply adopt and accept their religious philosophy, their religious theology, and their understanding. Okay, no way should we do that, because our prophets and priests has always been highly advanced, more than all of this. Okay, I'm going to be real with you. They've always been much more advanced. Okay, so we should stop that, and we should actually look into our own stuff and see what they say. So those of you who also just read it out from a mainland, inland African way of looking at things, but also let's look at it from a Kemetic or an Egyptian way of looking at things as well. So let me just see here. The authority of the office of prophet alone is insufficient to allow the officiant to perform the ritual. He must be specifically, authorized as well. So seeing the god required at least royal authorization. So that's number one. You need to be royally authorized. In other cases, it could require divine authorization, such as in the autobiography of Romeo Roy. And it reads out here, the God who created himself commanded that I be initiated into his forms immediately. So we have, training, and we have initiations. Okay. So the fact that the daily temple liturgy discusses how the officiant is an initiate of the gods before mentioning the position as prophet is significant, as the initiation separates the priest from the prophet. Okay. So we have priests that reaches up to a certain level, but now to become a prophet, okay, or hamnecher, one of the highest levels of authority within inside of ancient Egypt, you need to be initiated. So my question to you, okay, were your prophets initiated? That's a question. That's a question out there. Were your prophets initiated for me to even want to be accepting them as prophets? It continues, says, clearly shows that one is initiated as a prophet, and that being a prophet, one is expected for entry into the temple. Thus, priests are trained. Okay, so you have to be trained, while divine fathers, okay, are initiated, just like prophets are initiated. Some have argued that the two titles are absolutely equivalent for each other, etc., etc. So once being initiated, so we already said that, you now need to be divinely called or set apart according to African. Let me get the parallels for you. So in the African tradition, it says there that you need to be called, you then need to be trained, then you need to be initiated, then you need to be cleansed and ordained. So we've gone through how, the god or the royalty will now need to call you to say that you need to be initiated. Okay, and you're now trained into the office of priesthood. Okay, you need to know the different levels. Then you now are initiated. And now once you're initiated, let's see what it says here. It says here, the standard initiation sequence, as illustrated in the temples, for example, on the exterior of the Bark shrine at Karnak, is washing, establishing regalia or insignia, and finally induction into the presence of the god in his shrine. Those steps also appear in the Book of the Dead 125, where after the first declaration of innocence is read out, continues, and it says here, the donning of regalia and insignia is not described in the text, but the final rubric says that the ritual is to be performed when he is pure and clean, and after he has put on his raiment, is shod with white sandals and anointed with myrrh. Anointed. Messiah anointed. But anyway, I digress. And has presented a young bull, fowl, incense, bread, and beer and vegetables. After a second declaration of innocence, the individual passes through the gateway, naming the parts of the gate while passing through to be announced to the god. So yeah, it talks about, it continues to talk about initiations and so forth, then he ends. So so let's just get back to it. So as we can see, from the African perspective, okay, I don't want to say monolithically, but as a whole, we have that being called, being trained, being initiated, being cleansed and ordained. Okay, the four different things, and we can see that practice, being resounded throughout Kemet as well. You now need to be called, you now need to be trained in the priesthood, you now need to be initiated, and then you now need to be cleansed and ordained and given your regalia to officiate as a prophet. So we can see these things. So, again, if your particular prophets never went through that type of being called, being trained, being initiated, and being ordained, okay, we cannot possibly accept your stories onto us. Like, you can't impose your culture and your customs onto us. Okay, the same way, I'm pretty sure if like a Sikh person wanting to impose onto a Jew, they're not going to accept it. The same way, if the Dalai Lama wants to claim being the Messiah, you're not going to accept it. The same way, if a Yoruba man claims that he is the Mahdi of the Muslims, or a Nabi of the Muslims, you're not going to accept it. Okay, so we have our own rights, our own traditions, and our own philosophy and theology of what our priests and prophets should be. Okay, and we're not going to succumb and secede to your version at all. That should be our stance. I'm hoping as African people, we adopt that stance. We have our own criteria, and we shouldn't simply be accepting somebody else's over our own. We need to now start having pride in our own culture and not feeling as though it is inferior to anybody else's, because in fact it is much more superior, in my humble estimation, than other people, because we had to go through a whole list of rigorous training to make sure that our moral conduct is on point, our intellect is on point, our imagination is on point, our spirituality is on point, before we can reach the high status of becoming a prophet or becoming a minister of God or gods or deities, etc.
I'll just add into that, is that one of the reasons why this happens is primarily because we have lost a certain degree of our self-respect. So I'll give you an example. If I said, what's the longest wall in the world? Most people say Great Wall of China. But what if I told you that
it's in Nigeria?
Exactly. Four times longer than the Wall of China. But who knows that? All that's presented to us, especially our children, especially those of us who are in Europe, our children, is starvation, poverty, corruption. The list goes on, everything negative. So as a result, a lot of people kind of shy away because they're associated with something negative. So they'd rather take somebody else's stuff than take their own.
Thank you. I'm going to open it up now. Brother Saracen, I know you've jumped back in. I definitely know you want to have your say. Again, before you actually speak, you know what, somebody let me know if you want to be a moderator, because I'm hearing that there is certain trolls within inside of the comment section. If you want to be a moderator, just let me know, highlight to me that you want to be a moderator. I'll make you a moderator, and you could start blocking, because I can't obviously look in here all the time. You could start blocking individuals who aren't following the pattern that we respect over here on Titans TV. So just let me know if you want to be a moderator, and then I'll give it to you, and then you could get rid of those individuals. Again, also, if you like what we're doing, there's over 100 and odd people in here. Please give us a big thumbs up. Let us know you're liking the information so far. Okay, just give me a big thumbs up. Let me know that you're liking. All right, go ahead, King.
Yeah, bro. So I just wanted to just reiterate: if you're Muslim and you're in the chat room and you're preaching Muslim supremacy, or you're ridiculing, or you're being racist, or you're mocking people, know that's haram. So you need to stop that right now, because obviously we as Muslims, we're supposed to conduct ourselves in the best way, and we also, if we know there's an afterlife, we believe that. So know that if you're putting people off Islam and you're giving a bad impression of Islam, you're going to be accountable. So if you're being racist and you're being horrible, allow it, just let it be. Now that said, I came on because there's a guy who's running up his mouth, God of Game, saying this, and I said, come on the Kalam show, come on Titans TV. It's called Titans TV. Let's discuss. Obviously now he's making excuses about Facebook. But what I wanted to ask you, Kalam, is basically, you mentioned that you guys have got superior philosophies in your humble opinion, etc. But what if you're wrong? Surely it shouldn't be it shouldn't be viewed through the prism of race. It should be viewed through the prism of truth. So we have rationales. Yeah, God's given us rationales, and they are different philosophies. And it's fine if you don't believe in that, or something else makes sense to you. I respect that. But why follow something just because African people did, or because Indian people did it, or Chinese people did it? Shouldn't each philosophy or each thing be measured on truth rather than through the prism of race? That's my question to you.
Okay. Number one. Okay. Again, every according to, so I'm gonna answer you according to a Muslim really answer. Every nation was sent a prophet. Okay, every nation was sent a prophet. So, according to you, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Lord of all the known worlds, okay, sent prophets to all its people, surely every single nation, if you're Chinese, you should follow a Chinese prophet. If you are African, you should follow an African prophet. If you're an Arab, follow an Arab prophet, etc., etc., etc. There is no need and no use to be following anybody else's culture and identity at all, because now you start to lose your own identity and your own culture. Does that make sense? So that's number one. Number two is, we hold self-evident that we have truths. We have high spiritual truths. And to simply now succeed to anybody else's truth, that's now admitting to ourselves that our truth isn't actually supreme at all. But we know that we can look at our culture and our history, and we can see that we had definitely had knowledge. We definitely had truth, and we definitely governed ourselves nicely before any other religions begin to invade. Even when we look into the Abrahamic faiths themselves, we see that none of our sages or our prophets, according to your Islamic narrative and even the biblical narrative as well, we never followed your prophets. We were the ones who initiated and inducted your prophets into these mysteries, and we gave them a religion, so to speak. So, if we have our own religion and our own rights and our own practices, why are we now going to be jumping into a lesser way of life to govern ourselves, or to go to a different way of life to govern ourselves, when our way of life was highly supreme prior?
You had your prophets, and you're absolutely right in what you just said, and you put it down very beautifully. And I mentioned Luqman before, and there's many other great Black African prophets. But what we don't view, Islam doesn't view itself in terms of race. Now, we've certainly had racist Muslims in the past, and we've got racist Muslims right now. Some of them are even in the chat room right now, right? But the reality is, Islam isn't a race. It's a continuation of a message, starting from the first messenger or the first prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Adam, who we believe was black, created from a black clay, and it's a continuation of that human story. And yes, you're right, it's coming different races, but as society has progressed, new rules, new Sharia, what we call legislation, has come, and it's been according to the time and place. And it doesn't mean that you give up your culture, you don't give up. I'm very happy being a Pakistani Muslim. I respect Black African Muslims, I respect Jamaican Muslims, I respect white Muslims, I respect people's culture. And for me, it's beautiful, because we've made you into different tribes and different nations to know each other, and it is beautiful. But God's given me a brain, God's given me a rationale. I don't believe in this philosophy as your opinion is good as my opinion. I respect and I tolerate other opinions, absolutely. But when you've got something that's, someone's worshipping a stone or someone's worshipping a tree, I'm sorry, I can't buy that. You have to use your brain. Is it better to worship a God that that has no time, there's no time and place? We can go into that, that's a long debate, or just worship an inanimate object. I'm sorry, we're past that now. So that's what I've got to say about that. And that's what I say, you have to follow the truth. We shouldn't view things just because I'm African, like I'm Chinese, or because I'm Indian. We need to get over that.
Okay.
Can I jump in?
Real quickly, let me just put one thing out there again. Let me do this. So again, I'm reading again. I'm going to do this. Arabic Hermes. So this is from your Arab sources as well, about our own African Egyptian way of actually understanding. And I'm going to read from here real quickly, just so you can kind of understand how we particularly think. It says here, so this is talking about Hermes or Idris or Jehuti. It says here, he was the first who discovered astrology, and he established for each region, okay, a model of religious practice, okay, which they call sunnah, for them to follow, which corresponded to their views, okay. So let me just expand upon that real quickly. So Hermes, Idris, Jehuti, whichever name you want to call it, he created from our understanding and our perspective, okay, you know what, religion, okay, or religious way of practicing for every single people within inside of a vicinity that corresponded to their own particular views. Okay, so for example, within inside of ancient Egypt, we have 42 different nomes or 42 different nomarchs, which is be towns or governing systems, okay, under one rule. Okay, we have 42. Each one of them had their own way of understanding the divine. They had their own way of practicing, you know what, their own how can I put it, customs within inside of the society, their own laws, etc., etc. And they were able to live fine. Okay, there were 42 different ones of those that Jehuti created and gave to those different types of people. They were able to live fine. They didn't need one particular religion. Okay, everybody realized that we see the world differently, okay, based upon our environment. So we need things that are best suited for us within our own environment. For example, you know, in Africa, let's go to West Africa. We go into Ghana, we go into Nigeria. We have the Afanti, the Ashanti, the Asante. Everybody recognizes each other as being like, your way of life is good. We like your understanding and so forth. We have our own. Okay, it's very similar to yours, but we're not trying to convert each other. We're like, yeah, do what you're doing. You just have a different way of understanding the supreme than I do, but it's fine. Same with inside of the different tribes within inside of Nigeria. We all have our different ways of understanding, and that is fine. Okay, for example, you want to bring in, it's technically Arab imperialism in for our perspective. Okay, you want to bring in Islam. Okay, again, we find this in loads of the debates. You could only understand Islam or the Quran if you understand Arabic. Okay, for me, I do not want to be subservient as a person to another people's way of life or culture. I don't now want to for me to know God, I have to now learn Arabic and learn the Quran and learn all of those things there. Like, that is unnecessary for me. I would rather a religion that is best created for my own viewpoint. Throughout the whole of the Quran and throughout the whole of the Bible and so forth, it tells you every single people was sent a prophet for them, a person who best understood them, okay, that spoke their language, that can now explain things for them in their own particular way of understanding. If I now give up that tradition and that way of viewing things, and now take on Islam, I now need to learn Arabic and be subservient to somebody who knows more Arabic than me. I'm not going to do it. Okay. I now need to give up, you know, part of Islam is there is no art. You cannot draw animate objects. So you can't draw a human being, their face, etc. If you do, you now need to cover their eyes or break off their nose or whatever it is to disfigure them, because you cannot draw. Part of our African culture, we have art. We have all of this great art all throughout Africa. You're now telling us we now need to give that up to follow somebody else's particular vantage point. We're not going to do it. You're now telling us that there is no music in Islam. There's no dancing, so to speak. That if there's no music, then obviously there's no dancing. You know, music and musical instruments are haram according to some beliefs in Islam. We're not now going to give up that key component of what makes us have a soul and a spirit to go now and follow that over there, one person's perspective. To be honest with you, we're not going to do it. We already foresee ourselves as having hieroglyphs, which is the birth of all language, written language, that has given birth to, you know, the Greeks, the Romans, the English alphabet, the Arabic language, etc., etc. We're not going to give that up based upon one man's perspective. We're just not going to do it. We have our own traditions, we have our own customs, and our traditions and customs has been given to us by our own people, and there's no need for us to be accepting anybody else's. Hopefully that answers your question. I'm going to give it over to my other brother, because I know that he wanted, wait, Saracen, you can go in a minute. I'm going to give it to my other brother and see what he has to say, and then we can go back and forth.
All right, peace. So I heard Saracen mention something about polytheism, and he can't really understand some of the concept or aspects of polytheism. But is this, you know, like monotheism is like an ideology, same as polytheism. If you've never been a polytheist, or if you weren't born into a family that practices polytheism, from your perspective, you can always just say, well, I can't do that. I can't understand that. So, you know, that's just critique or criticism which is unfounded on any sort of solid ground, because you haven't necessarily been or practicing all those things. From my personal perspective, when I was born, I was presented to the moon, and I was laid on the floor, and and presented to, and the libation was poured, and other things happened when I was born. Now you're gonna tell me that my ancestors have been practicing this tradition for hundreds of years, I should just stop what I'm doing and accept what you're saying? It's not like that. So you need to be open-minded and accept the fact that other people from all walks of life have ways of venerating their deity or their deities. It's not up to one man, or it's not up to you to tell someone what to do or what not to do. At the end of the day, if you talk about God, you understand that God is the judge, not man. So just chillax.
You're absolutely right. It isn't for me to tell you what to do and what not to do. What I can do, though, and this is my right, is I can ask you, I can question you, why do you do this? Now, in Japan, they have a penis festival where they draw there's massive penises and people worship these penises. Google it, check it out for yourself. There's another island where men walk around naked and they run after each other, I'm sorry, for me, that's nonsense. That is, we as humans are better than that. God's given us this incredible thing called our brain. I'm sorry, there's certain things that, I can only voice my concerns. Whether you take
Can I interject?
Is not. The other thing was, just go back to what Kalam says. Kalam, there's always been a debate about music, about that. Similarly with art, there's nothing like that. When the Prophet, peace be upon him, there were some Abyssinians that came, and it's in Sahih Bukhari, if people want to check this out. There was Abyssinians, and they danced and they sung in front of the Prophet. They would come every year in Medina. So we've always had that tradition. The Hanafi Sunni school, which I follow, is the most tolerant of all of those schools. There is some hardcore opinions that have come up recently, but traditionally there's always been in a debate around that. So I think that's slightly unfair. I do hear your point, and just to reiterate, we never force. The problem is that a lot of people come across these Muslims that are very aggressive in their dawah, and you have to get a conversion. For me, I don't really care if I get a conversion or not. I just have to present the message, question things, and I question like I said, I question my own religion. I question what people tell me. I don't just take things when Muslims say it. I don't just take things when a Christian says it, or a Hindu, or Sikh, or even my history teacher, or whatever. It's good to question. That's why I like the show. That's why I like Titan TV, because it forces you to reassess what you believe in. It forces you, and that's what I'm saying. Keep an open mind, But if something's wrong, you got to kind of use your brain. If you want to go and carry on because your ancestors did it, or because your fathers have done it, or it's your family tradition, that's by all means. The Quran addresses that in that, that's why some people believe in what they believe in. But I believe that you've got a brain, and I believe that we're better than that. We have to maximize. We're Beni Adam. We're the sons and daughters of Adam. We've got to maximize our abilities in the world.
Definitely. I definitely respect what you're saying. I want to just touch on a few of those things real quickly. Just to give you justification of why I was saying what I was saying. I don't want to say that, there isn't a debate going on with inside that, but just to show you the impetus of where it's coming from again. So we're going into, the hadiths of Bukhari. And it also says, so it says here basically in Bukhari 5590, I believe it is. It says here that he heard, so this is narrated by Abu Amir or Abu Malik al-Ashari, and he says here that he heard the Prophet saying, from among my followers there will be some people who will consider illegal sexual intercourse, the wearing of silk, the drinking of alcoholic drinks, and the use of musical instrument as lawful. Okay. And there will be some who will stay near the side of a mountain, etc., 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 and so forth. And on the last day, it says here, they would be transformed into monkeys and pigs till the day of and they will be remain so till the day of resurrection, etc. So this is the impetus of what I'm saying about, you know, musical instruments. But I respect that there is definitely is a debate whether this is halal or haram based upon other hadiths as well. So I respect that, no problem. And again, you know, you're talking about, you know, if people are in folly and error, surely. So I respect that again, of course. If somebody is in folly and error, and just because their ancestors were practicing it, is down to them now to actually analyze whether it's best for them to choose another system or change their system. So I respect that. You know, I definitely do respect that. If some people want to choose Islam, Christianity, Judaism, whatever religion it is, I respect them. Go ahead, do it. But just be very mindful of what you're doing, and don't just do it without actually investigating your own religion or your own way of life or your own heritage, your own history. Because, you know, Marcus Garvey says that, you know what, people are like, you know, sorry, what is it goes? Where it goes? It says here that a tree without roots are like a people without no history. Okay, so therefore you should actually learn about your own history and your culture and your heritage, to not be dead and simply accept somebody else's culture as well. Please investigate the different religions that you want to become a part of. No problem. I don't have no problem with that at all. You know, if somebody wants to change or convert over to something else, but it should be really well investigated before they choose to change over. That's my only concerns with that. Also, you talked about, you know, the different people in Japan, you know, doing, you know, running around penises or worshiping penises and so forth. I would simply say that, you know, that is a very, how can I put it? It's a very crude way of looking at things. Okay. You know, I personally believe you should actually investigate whether that's what they actually are doing, or is there a very deeper spiritual reason behind what they're doing. For example, I'm just going to say like this: I can be an objectionable person and, you know, pretend that I don't know nothing about Islam, and I can look at Muslims going to Mecca and, you know, literally running around like a big building and, you know, kissing and praying and touching and crying over a stone, and a black stone at that. And I could say this is some, you know, devil worshipping thing going on. I can say, you know, these are idol worshippers. They're worshiping a stone. You know, they're worshiping a black stone. That's what I could be saying. You know, Muslims worship a black stone. They pray towards a black stone and all sorts. So, you know, that's what they do. They worship a black stone. And then obviously you're going to be having a response at me to say that's in ignorance. You don't know what you're talking about. We don't worship the black stone, etc., etc. And you're going to give us your whole history and culture and let me know why you do the things that you do. So I think that other people from, you know, their own walks of life, you should also give them the courtesy of explaining what they're doing and why they're doing it, because it might have a deeper meaning than just the surface meaning. You know, if I look at a Jew banging their heads against a wall, I can say that they're worshiping a wall and so forth, not knowing the deeper spiritual meanings behind it. So I think that we should be fair and equal and courteous to other groups of individuals as well.
I have, brother. And
okay.
What they do is for fertility, but they do actually kiss the penis. They make a giant penis, and they do actually go around touching it and kissing it, and believe that by doing so it increases your fertility. But that for me is complete nonsense.
Can I just jump in?
Go ahead, King.
I mean, so I actually know about the penis thing, and it's a cultural celebration. And for a while, nobody really believes that they become fertile from it, but it's just part of the culture. It's a tradition that they've kept up, and it's seen as a celebration, it's a festival. So you're actually there to enjoy yourself. Furthermore, there's nothing wrong with the penis. I was born with one. Every man's born with one. So pretending that it's some kind of sinful thing, to me, is illogical. It makes no sense. But looking at things from a rational standpoint, with regards to Africa, we can see Africa before foreign religions, and we can see Africa after foreign religions. And it's very clear that Africa after foreign religions has dwindled. So I will not accept a foreign way of doing things when the empirical result I can see with my own eyes is that my people have crumbled compared to when we were doing our own things for our own selves, in our own way, that reflected us. We were high. Now we're low. So for me, looking at it from a rational standpoint, being logical, there is no need to adopt other people's religions, because when we've done it, the outcome has not been good for us.
Can I ask, have you seen how Islam came to West Africa? Because if you look at it, it wasn't through war. Because if you look at when Islam tried to enter Africa, empirically through the Umayyads, they got their asses kicked. It was through the Sufis and through the Sufi tradition of art and music, and what the Sufis did, they took the people's culture and they said, look, we respect that you have, as long as it doesn't contradict with this, here's, we invite you. It wasn't through war or anything like that. Actually, if you read the Walking Quran, it's a fantastic book, and I'm plugging it by Dr. Randall Poyer, who's a fantastic Black African Muslim. Just type him in YouTube. He discusses this at length. And it was actually the African Muslims who, if you look at their history, who were the first to abolish slavery as well, who took this stance, and this then was taken in by the Europeans, etc. So I think Islam has greatly enriched West Africa, greatly enriched it. There was tribes warring, killing each other way before that. And I really do urge you, just don't read that book with an open mind. I think it will really benefit. Hopefully I'll get Kalam a copy when I see him at Speaker's Corner. You can read it as well.
Oh, okay.
Can I jump in?
Sorry, let me just quickly say something. Oh, he's gone. But he completely misrepresented what I just said. At no point did I mention anything to do with wars. That is complete. That's going off on an irrelevant tangent. What I specifically said was, we can look at Africa before foreign religions, and we can look at Africa after foreign religions. At no point did I say they came in or they caused wars or anything like that. But it is very clear empirically that African society has dwindled with the introduction of foreign religions. So I don't know why he keeps going on about wars. Oh, sorry, he's back. Yeah, sorry, I don't know why you keep going on about wars. I'm not talking about wars. I didn't mention anything to do with wars. I didn't say Islam came in with swords killing everybody. I simply said the introduction of foreign religions to the land, we can see how Africa has performed before they came, and we can see how Africa is now that they're there. Didn't talk about wars, didn't talk about anybody killing anybody, didn't say Muslims are coming in and killing people and converting people by force. So don't straw man me. I really don't like that. Don't straw man me.
I'm sorry if I strawmanned you. I didn't mean to. I thought that's what you said. I caught the back end of your conversation when I was trying to log in. So I apologize for that. Can I just ask you, when do you think Africa was at its pinnacle? For me, it was under Mansa Musa, when they were the richest. Mali was the richest country ever. The other period I would probably say is ancient Nubia. But I want to know from the African point of view, including Kalam and the people on the panel, when do you think Africa was at its pinnacle, right? The highest?
Okay. Should I Edo, or are you going to go in, or should I go in?
Oh, yeah. Oh, okay. No, you go. I was saying something before.
Okay, so Africa has had many great like ages and stuff. So it was difficult to pick one single age to say, oh, this is like the greatest age that Africa has had. Obviously, in recent history or recent mishistory, a lot of African history has been misportrayed in a certain light. So therefore, most people are probably ignorant about the real history of Africa. That's one. Secondly, I know you sound very much like, you know, you're open-minded and you want people to really look into Islam with an open mind, but then you also kind of sound like the rest of everyone else on the face of this planet is myopic, and we just like, everyone's short-sighted and no one really knows how to perhaps observe or respect certain deities and stuff. Look, if you in your house, when you were brought up, you were taught how to bake bread a certain way, and I was brought up in a certain way to bake bread in a certain way, well, at the end of the day, it's still bread. So you can't come and tell me that, oh no, actually, well, stop the way you're baking your bread and come and bake bread my way. No, or looking at someone else's way and say it's wrong. And finally, none of us was born with a religion, and we're gonna leave this place without religion. So it's not really about religion. It's about spirituality and growing your spirit and stuff. So I'm not interested in attaching myself. Yeah, I'll read the Quran, I'll read other books, but there are many books. As we're talking about the ancient Egyptian priests, you had to be a master of literature, like absolutely like libraries of information. It's not just about just reading one thing. Yeah, I'm happy to look at the Quran, but are you happy to look into African history? Are you happy to look into the true history of these people? Are you happy to look into the history of the Japanese people? Do your own research. So, but that's what I have to say, basically.
You're right. And just to let you know, I grew up in Tottenham, and I grew up mainly around Black people. Most of my time when I was a youth, I studied at the Marcus Garvey Library. For those of you who know Tottenham, know about the Marcus Garvey Library. I've grown up with Black history. I've always loved Black history, even though I'm Pakistani. But I'm very open. I would like to think I'm open-minded. I am sound. I would like to think I'm quite strong in my belief in Islam. But that's come over time. But I respect different cultures. I like the Bushido, the samurai culture especially. I do like ancient Japan and ancient China as well. But my main interest is in history generally. But I love Black African history, and I seek to promote it amongst Muslims. So just a little bit of background from where I come from.
Definitely, thank you. I appreciate my brother Saracen, for always coming on and actually bring clarity to the shows and actually showing an interest in a lot of these great topics here. Like, I wish more of our brothers from all around will be more like this in terms of, it's really good to get people from different perspectives to actually question African philosophy and Kemet. I actually appreciate when we've got people like this, because it helps to bring more clarity to everybody else, because these questions may be already in people's minds, but they're not brave enough and articulate enough to actually come on and present these questions and these different types of views. Also, I can see you guys, somebody saying that they've messaged me via Facebook. All you have to do is Kalam SPEL. That is my Facebook, personal Facebook. Go on there, inbox me via that link, via there, and I will get you onto the show. We're definitely going to be closing out soon, so I don't know how much longer we can actually stay on here, because we've been going for quite some time now. But I wanted to
good evening. I'm going to go now, but I work in the morning. Take care. Nice speaking to everyone. Nice
speaking to you, my brother. Salam. All right. So again, I wanted to actually just touch on a few different things, because my brother was speaking, and I wanted to say, according to, even when we go into these biblical stories and Quranic stories, we will always find that our individuals, the African presence are in these stories, but we were always the teachers of these individuals. We was always their teachers. We was always the one that initiated them into the mystery schools, and we were the one that gave them their religion, so to speak, or we helped to manifest their religion. Okay, so in that being said, we never actually adopted their religion, or if we did, it was only to help them out, and then afterwards we was like, all right, cool, you're nice, you're set up, cool. I know that you need it. And for example, let me put it like this. I don't know who belongs to the lodges then. I don't know. We may set up something, we may set something up. Okay. And we give it to the people and be like, you're cool. You're nice. You with me? You're nice. We'd have no reason to be joining their particular religion or cultures. We go into the scriptures. We read about people. Let me go into the scriptures. Let's think. We go into the scriptures. We learn about Melchizedek. Okay, we learn that Melchizedek was in Canaan land. He was a high priest to the Most High. We learned that he was an Egyptian. He was an emperor and a priest. He already had his system set up. Okay, he now had to initiate. Okay, he now had to initiate. What's his name? Abraham into their system. Into a system, and give him a system to follow. And that was just for him. Abraham, you're off seed. We've now created a constitution for you. Here you go. Have that. Go forth. Melchizedek never joined their systems. You with me? He never joined their systems at all. Furthermore, they joined his systems and wanted to be part. You know, Jesus was claiming to be after that order. David in the Psalms was talking about being after the order of Melchizedek. That was supposedly the highest order on planet Earth at that time. And who was Melchizedek? He was an Egyptian. So why do we want to now join their systems? It behooves me. I don't understand how people have our own stuff. You know, we go into, you know, Moses. We know that Moses was an Egyptian, but he also had an Ethiopian teacher. He had an Ethiopian teacher that was teaching him stuff, and you know, and he never joined Moses's is mission like that. He simply taught him. You know, there's a nice story if you go into the Talmud. You know, it's a very negative stories about Jesus, so to speak. But we go in there, we can read the stories. You know, he's talking about who is the wisest. Okay, so they answered. So that one answered and said to the wise ones, "Who is the teacher and who the disciple? Who of the twain is wiser, Moses or Jethro?" Okay, so Moses or Jethro or Raul, depending on the different names that you know him by. And it says, "Was it not Moses, father of the prophets and head of the wise? And the Torah, moreover, bear with witness of him. And from henceforth there ariseth no prophet in Israel like unto Moses. Withal Jethro was an alien, yet taught he Moses worldly wisdom, as it is written. Set thou over them rulers of thousands and rulers over hundreds. But if ye say that Jethro is greater than Moses, then would there be an end to the greatness of Moses?" So, you know, even then, you see what I'm saying? Like, you have the Jews, Jesus speaking to the Jews, saying that, you know, Jethro was actually wiser than Moses and educated Moses, and he was a stranger. But you claim that Moses was the highest and the wisest of them all. And it continues to say, when the wise heard this, they said, "As he is so very shameless, let us inquire after him." They sent to his mother, "Thus tell us, pray, who is the father of this boy?" You know, so straight away, okay, when Jesus was talking this Cushite Ethiopian doctrine right here, which he might have learned from Egypt, you never know. You know, they now wanted to know, like, "Bro, who is your father?" About you telling us that Moses wasn't the wisest of them all. Who is your father? You know, the way it's there, like, we never followed their stuff. We was always wiser than them. We go into the Quran now. We learn in Islam the same thing. You know, Moses supposedly thought he was the wisest, and then, you know, the Quran tells him that no, travel down into Sudan, travel down where the two Niles meet, and you'll find somebody there, Al-Khidr, the dark one. Okay, go down there, you'll find somebody who's much wiser than you, and he would be the one to teach you things. He went down there. He was educated by him. Moses said, "Let me be your follower. I want to be your follower." He's pleading, he's begging to be Al-Qadar's follower. Al-Qadar is like, "Nah, fam, I don't want you to be my follower. You can't bear what I have to say, what I have to teach." In the end, Moses couldn't even pass his training or his initiation. Why? Because he didn't have something called patience. He was kept butting in. He didn't have the patience. So again, Al-Qadar was somebody even higher than Moses with inside of their particular traditions, the Quranic teachings. Al-Qadar was higher than Moses. Inside of the Jewish teachings, Jesus taught, Jethro was higher than him, who was a Cushite, who was an Ethiopian. So really and truly, we have our own systems that were much more stronger, much more wiser than their systems. Why do we not go back and try to learn our own system? Go back into Kush, go back into Ethiopia, go back into Egypt, go back into the West Africa, Dogons, Mali, etc., etc. Go back into those systems and find out what our people actually taught before accepting their traditions. That's what I'm saying. That's what I got to say. I've exhausted myself. I'm mad tired right now. What are we saying? Edo, man, you're there? Is there anything that you wanted to add?
Yeah, no, I'm still here. No, I think you pretty much said it. At the moment, we're broken people. That's why things are the way they are. If you look at prisons, the biggest conversions take place in prisons, and people like to boast about that. And who do you find in prisons? You don't find well-rounded, emotional people who are secure in their emotions in prison. You find people who are broken, and we are a broken people. And when you're broken, you just latch onto anything that looks halfway powerful. And that's what's happened to us. Because if you look at our systems have zero compulsion. You don't even get somebody on the street coming to talk to you about it. You know, you literally need to know someone and say, oh, what's that you're doing? It goes, oh, this, oh, it's da 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 da. You don't even see our people on the streets saying, I want to tell you this. I think you might need this in your life. Hey, have you heard of this? Zero. It's a case of, if what you're doing is good for you, more power to you. Not my business. I've got my own stuff to worry about. Simple. Finish. You know? But no, I think you pretty much wrapped it all up.
All right, give thanks. We give thanks. We got Kumba. Are you there real quickly before we close out on the show? I'm going to do a quick announcement as well. But before we close down the show, is there anything that you wanted to say?
I learned a lot, man. I appreciate you guys spreading the truth. And it's always encouraging to see us finally having a mindset to come together on one accord, no matter where, how far away we are. It's the spirit that we're after. I think we're not even really after, putting a fork in the ground with a statue flag of or statue or a flag, that has Kemet or anything on it. But I think it's, pure souls that we're looking for. So I appreciate that.
Definitely, King. Definitely. All right. You know what? It's been an absolute pleasure having you guys. I'm going to drop some announcements real quickly, and then I'm going to close out. But again, please give us some likes, man. Show us the appreciation. Hit the like buttons. Like. Let us know that you've been enjoying the show. All right. My brothers actually want the link, bro. I'm trying to go to bed. You lot are crazy out here. All right, cool. Let me send you the link, my brother. Real quickly, let me get back into that. Yeah, show us the love, man. Show us the love. We're on 59 likes so far. I want to see that just dramatically increase. Show us that you're appreciating us, you're loving what we're doing, man. I want to see that love, man. Show us that you're loving us. So there we go, 61. I see that jump. That's lovely. So you know what? Yeah, I might even cut this bit out from the actual live show when I just cut, trimming out and stuff. But what is it saying, man? Yeah, brother Sarah. I know you guys want to see this debate, man. Like Adnan Rashid, out of all of the Muslim brothers out there, is stepping up. He says that, yeah, bang, let's get involved with the debate. I was mad gas this afternoon, coming back. I was like, yo, I want to see this debate popping. I spoke to Sarah and he's like, you know what? This whole, Nun thing, like, is cool. It's like a little jab. That's about it. But he wants to go straight to the jugular. He wants to give that right hook. He wants to get it in. So that's what he's basically saying. He wants to get it in. And if he wants to debate, he will be debating on things such as the marriage between Aisha and the Prophet. That's what he really want to be doing, or something that has a very much more greater impact than simply something like that. That's just like something trivial. It doesn't really affect anything. He wants something that has much more of a longer, harder effect. And I appreciate that. So if brother Adnan would actually want to debate things to do with Aisha's age, etc., I think my brother would be like, yeah, let's do it. So I already read Adnan Rashid's thing. He said he's only want to deal with that particular topic, and that's it. So unfortunately, I don't know if Sarah says he needs something much more hard, much more stronger than that, man. So that's my little announcement I've got to give you guys. Hold on, let me just see what my brother Sarah is saying real quickly. What are you saying, King?
Imhotep, ETE, Imhotep, Shanice, and Shanesh watching. Make sure y'all like my man Kalam's channel. Stop playing games. Like his channel. Drop a 5, drop a 10, man. This stuff is not for free when we be doing these YouTubes.